Hello, everyone. Welcome to PrimeFaces session. Thanks for choosing PrimeFaces for this hour. My name is Cagatay. It's a hard name to pronounce. So I'm a Java Surfaces expert group member since JSF 2.0, and now we are working on JSF 2.3. Also, I'm the founder of the PrimeFaces project that I will talk about right now. So, little word on PrimeTech. PrimeFaces is an open source project, but it is backed by a company, an open source supporter company called PrimeTech, which is focuses on PrimeFaces and its PrimeFaces Foundation, and it is related products. So, any PrimeFaces users? Can anyone raise their hand? Wow, a lot. Okay. So, it is a 7-year-old project, started in 2009, in November, and that was the fourth, I guess, birthday of, a cake from the fourth birthday of PrimeFaces. And it's a quite lightweight library. One of the reasons why we created PrimeFaces was we were using other libraries, but they were not really performing well from our perspective. We were facing some, slowness. So what we decided to do is that create something lightweight that when you add PrimeFaces to your project, you don't feel any, difference before and after. And one of the reasons why it is quite popular is it's easy to use, so that PrimeFaces can handle this complex UI requirements so that you can focus on the business side of the things. It's one jar file. It's a small jar file, like 3 megabytes right now, and it requires it doesn't require any dependencies. You can just add the jar and go on with it. Of course, there are some optional dependencies, like for PDF export, there's a dependency to iText and so on. Another nice feature is that we are following Java's configuration by exception design. Everything is configured by default, but if you want to change it, you can change it easily. But by default, you just need to add the library to your class path. As I mentioned, since 7 years old, we get a nice rate of adoption. Most enterprises, PrimeFaces is kind of for enterprises anyway, so the users and the clients of ours are from enterprises. So from banks, financial institutions, automotive sector, and especially insurance as well. So most of these companies are users and clients of PrimeFaces. And they're also in Belgium, we have a couple of clients, especially in governments. Lately, government agencies in Europe and United States also picking PrimeFaces for their products, for their projects. As a major project, it is easy to find information. It's like if you go on Stack Overflow, there are a lot of questions and answers. Also on LinkedIn or in the job post, so there's a high demand on PrimeFaces, especially in the world. For example, there's a job post for this one's from Boston in the United States and Europe as well. So it's important that when you are looking for a PrimeFaces developer for your project, it is not that hard. But for example, we made a job post like 3 months ago looking for a JavaScript front-end developer. That is harder to find, at least in Turkey. So DZone has recently published a web framework poll that is web frameworks running on JVM, and it turns out, I think this has been asked for 2,000 people from different countries, and JSF and Spring MVC are the 2 popular choices. Still, JSF is a 10-year-old technology, and it's after 10 years, it is still quite popular, which is interesting if you just consider the landscape of today's web technologies. Like, you get a JavaScript framework every month, right? And it's followed by Spring MVC and Wicked and other frameworks as well. So, using this, 34%, what are the competitors inside JSF landscape? JSF has a big ecosystem, right? So, in this case, We have a couple of competitors, RichFaces from JBoss, Red Hat, and IceFaces. RichFaces is not very active anymore. They are in maintenance mode, and IceFaces as well. Weird thing is IceFaces is a fork of PrimeFaces 3, I guess. So it's an interesting point. So there's PrimeFaces, fork of PrimeFaces, and RichFaces. There's also Oracle ADF Faces, which is less popular than these. So it's like natural selection. When one species goes up in this ecosystem, the others are going down. So this means that if you are choosing PrimeFaces, if you are choosing JSF, then it is likely to choose PrimeFaces as well in that 34%. There's also a nice OmniFaces library. Anyone heard of OmniFaces? It's a nice utility library from two great guys. So it is a global project. So this photo has been taken somewhere. Any guesses? India? No? No? Yeah. So you can see the stickers, PrimeFace stickers at the rear window of these are developers and users of PrimeFace. They posted this on Facebook group. So I was very surprised that, I mean, it's thousands of kilometers away. It shows the power of open source, and they just printed the sticker and put them on their cars. So if I will just describe some stats and move on to why PrimeFaces is used in these countries. So in Brazil, it's crazy popular, more than double the time of the in United States. So this is from October 2015 from visitors to primefaces.org. And it's followed by United States and Germany. In Germany, it's also really popular, and followed by European countries, France, Spain, Italy, and then Turkey as well. But in South America, it is kind of crazy popular. Some stats about adoption. So last version has been downloaded by 150,000 times. So assuming that a project has maybe 5 developers, 10, sometimes 1 developer, so we might maybe project it to maybe 1 million users. At least maybe, and in our website we get close to more than 100,000 users. And interesting thing is that we are of course monitoring that, and it is increasing. So this is what surprises me somehow. I mean, as an old technology, maybe this is because we fixed JSF in version 2, so that it became usable and productive finally. And with 2.2, there are a lot of nice features for enterprise requirements like faces flows or HTML markups, where you can use a simple HTML instead of tags, in case you don't like the XML syntax. And again, as I mentioned, this is kind of interesting to see increases. So enough with the introduction. What is PrimeFaces? This is PrimeFaces, actually. Anything, I mean, PrimeFaces is a set of UI components, right? And they are lately responsive. They can work, they adjust to screen widths. They look great, which wasn't the case maybe 2 years ago. And now they look great and modern. And there are charts, tabs. There are more than 100 components. But probably in a regular project, you would need around maybe 50 of them. But some project requires charts, some project requires a signature component, and so on. And we are lately using the latest underlying technologies like CSS3 and HTML5, and so on. You can also do stuff like this if you are bored like us. This is called fake operating system from Apple. This is what you see on the screen are JSF components, actually. It's a web page. I will show you a quick demo as well. Browser support is, we are spending a lot of time on browser support. Like we support almost latest versions of Chrome, Firefox, and all that things. And for IE, of course, it's a problem. We start from IE 8. So IE7 is not supported, partially supported actually, it works, but if a bug occurs, we don't just spend our weekends to fix it. So this is the idea of PrimeFaces. When developing rich UIs, the most of the time is spent on creating or learning these technologies. Of course, it is great to learn these technologies so you can just tweak things and change things and adjust things. But most of the time, for the boilerplate where you need to repeat yourself, writing CSS, JavaScript, and Ajax from scratch, PrimeFaces handles that. But important thing is that since these are like someone else's code, how can you adjust them to your own needs? How can you change the look and feel? It's easy to override CSS. Sorry. And there is a JavaScript API where you can change the behaviors and call widget APIs. And callbacks are probably the most important things, so that you can hook in events where you can change and add behavior. So this is called schedule, for example. It's like a Google Calendar-like component. So how it works, on the JSF side, there's a P schedule, and of course you can create it with new schedule API as well, with the Java API. And we render a simple div and with an ID, and the script part is widget. We call these small widgets like cousins of components. Components are server-side instances, but widgets are client-side instances. And the widget handles the DOM rendering, event binding, Ajax, everything else. So it's quite lightweight. You don't get tons of markup for this component. And interesting thing is that the event and data is sent as JSON. So it's not, it's quite lightweight to use this component. So we are trying to keep things small and lightweight instead of a lot of markup. We usually create the UI at the client side with jQuery. PrimeFaces is jQuery based. So accessible rich internet applications is quite hot these days. It's a hot topic these days. And we are spending a lot of time because there are laws in Europe and United States like Section 508, where if the web page should be accessible to handicapped users, like, for example, if you are using Spinner, you have to make it accessible with mouse so that you can increment and decrement values with mouse. If a person cannot use a mouse, but you can focus on it with tab key and use arrow keys. If the user is blind, you need to make sure that this component is readable by screen readers. For example, a complex component like accordion panel, we need to tell screen reader not to read those collapsed ones, so that we need to add these area attributes. So we are spending a lot of time in the next version as well. Many components that are not accessible will be accessible by the next version. But we will spend a lot of time on this topic as well. So Ajax in JSF is quite easy, right? You just declare what to update and what to process. In PrimeFaces, we have added some extensions. At server side, we are using standard APIs, but on the client side, we are using jQuery based so that we can extend. So what are the extensions? Probably the users, PrimeFace users in this room already use some of them. One of my favorites is selectors. So in core JSF, you can only reference components with their IDs. But in JSF, you can use jQuery selectors, like update that last form on the page using the last pseudo selector. So that you don't need to bother with the IDs. And ID selection is quite is slower compared to jQuery-based selectors as well. Resource handling. PrimeFace has a lot of CSS and JavaScript, so we need to make sure it is optimized. We compress them, we merge them, and send them to the client. gzip is also available. And on-the-fly loading is quite interesting. If the component cannot find its resource on the page, meaning that you have created it dynamically and edit with your Java code, like when you do in swing programming, where you can add a button or a table, its resources will be added automatically. So it fixes a lot of problems. So this demo is also available online. This is called PrimeFaces Showcase. Let me show that fake. So this is the fake Mac or Mac OS X. So this is the growl component, and this is the dialog. I guess this is the actual one. They changed it, and this is based on the older version. And let's check out the terminal. This is real terminal, right? And this is also a JSF component where you can just get the commands and respond. So there's a Java method. So if you check out the source, we have a menu bar at the top and dialog and form and so on. So this is, as I mentioned, this selector API. For example, in PrimeFaces, we can just say, update all the forms or update the last form, update any thing on the page that has the UI panel style class. So this is jQuery. As I mentioned, in JSF, Ajax is declarative, right? So we can just say update all the inputs at the panel, but except the select tag. For example, this one's saying update every input, but not the select. So you can even write expressions. One of the nice feedback we get from the users are that these search algorithms or the search features of PrimeFaces are quite powerful compared to the plain ID-based approach of JSF. So, for example, you have this p-autocomplete component where you type something and you get selections. So there's a complete method here, for example, if you can see it. And whatever you type, that is passed to here, and you can just hit the database to load data, and that's it. It's like 2 lines or 4 lines. But if you want something more complex, you can say, okay, I need to select multiple ones. So you can set multiple to true. And here, in that case, the component will allow you to add multiple. And so it's easy as setting multiple to true, but for us, this took like maybe 2 weeks. But as a user, it is easy as setting multiple to true. So this is the idea of, there's an attribute for almost everything. Again, select one, for example. I mean, there's so many components I sometimes cannot find them. So, for example, there's a p-select one menu, which is editable, skinnable. You can add filters. So you can just say, okay, I need some filtering and some nice effects, for example. So you can add filtering. It could be editable, and so on. And a nice component lately that we have added is signature. So we have been getting requests that you need to sign some form like a CAPTCHA. So you can just say, okay, I need a P signature, and I need the base64 or the JSON encoded signature as the value here. So we pass that string. So you can just say Devoxx. I couldn't write it, sorry. And you get it at the JSON. So you can just parse it in the database and so on. Okay, moving on. There are a lot of data components. For example, in the data table, if you just need a paginator, you can just say paginator true, of course, right? And we get a paginator. If you need sorting, okay, I need columns with sort by, and I need multiple sorting to true. So we get sorting, and you can do multiple sorting as well. The same thing goes for filtering. It is easy setting as filter to true, and we get filters. And it's quite easy because PrimeFaces does the filtering for you. If you want to do the filtering, you assume that you have 1 million records in the database. There's a lazy loading method so that you can only load a certain chunk of data instead of all the 1 million records. This is lazy loading. If you want to drag and drop columns, you can just say draggable columns true or draggable rows true. You get events. And in case your users are used to Excel, it is easy to set, okay, editable true. And that's it, actually. Editable true just makes these cells editable and sends the data back to the backend. If you need a data grid, for the same presentation. It is simple as changing that tag name with a data grid. Instead of data table, you can have data grid. So this is one of the nice new components. It's called diagram, where there's a diagram model, and you can just add endpoints, create shapes, and make them, connect them, and so on. You drag and drop them. You can create your own charts and flow charts. Yeah, these were draggable. So they are quite easy because there's a Java API. Picklist is one of my favorite components where you can move things around. And it's also responsive. For example, if you just make it smaller, the buttons, icons, everything just adjusts itself. So assume that you need a tree component, right? Here is a tree. Of course, there's a backend model, right, with the nodes and where you add children to a node. And we had a requirement from a customer saying that I need that tree horizontally. Okay. In that case, here we have a horizontal tree. And to do that, you need to set orientation horizontal. But it took 1 month to do this. For example, the same thing, but horizontal. There are a lot of weird stuff going on behind the scenes. Connecting those lines was very hard. And regular stuff that you expect from a component suite, like dialogs or tooltips, menus. I think we have more than 10 menus. For example, context menus, slide menu. I guess it was the iPod-like menu. And we had a tiered menu and a lot of menus. And charts as well. We are using JQplot. Everything is open source and included. So you don't need to of course you can use high charts or some other charts that are paid, but these are quite easy to use as well. Supports a lot of chart methods. You can even take your photo with PrimeFaces, yes. If the Chrome. Okay, Chrome didn't allow me to do that, but. Okay, I have another demo with the PhotoCam, probably it will work. And all the image galleries and everything, all included. So you don't need to look for a jQuery plugin to do some imaging and so on. Okay, so file upload, it's a time-taking process. You need to get the file, write some filters, or use the native APIs. In PrimeFaces, you just need to say, okay, give me a file upload, and for example, drag and drop. So here I have a file that I created before the demo. So if I drop it on the browser, it will just display it, right? But if I drop it on the component, I can just upload it. There's an auto-upload as well, so when you drop, we can just upload it. It is easy as drag-drop support through. And all these, any PrimeFace component or any JSF component or any HTML element can be draggable, droppable, and you can get what has been dragged and dropped at the server side so that you can create UIs like this as well. And some interesting components that you might not need every day, but you can block a certain part of the page with block UI. So you can block a component and unblock it to prevent user access. Or we have this cache component. So assume that you have this menu on the left and header at the top. Instead of rendering and using the CPU to render that stuff, you can use the advantages of server-side rendering and just say, okay, just cache this part of the page so that it will be loaded from the, you can plug in multiple cache implementations as well, like EHCache and Hazelcast as well. So there was a time where I was able to show all the components. I think in the 2010 presentation, we had like 10 components, so now it's impossible. Okay, dialog framework. This is more like an enterprise feature as well. It's kind of single-page application kind of thing, where you can stay on one page and include other pages and render them in a dialog. So you're on one page, you need to select some data from other page and come back. Instead of just navigating between pages, you can just say, okay, open dialog, open this target XHTML using Open Dialog API from PrimeFaces. And then we generate a dialog. You don't need to use pdialog. We just generate some dialog for you. And then move the target XHTML inside and then open it. And then you can just get data and pass it back to the master page that calls this. For example, here we have, I'm on this data XHTML and I need to select some car. So this is the select car with the data table inside. What I do is that when I click this button, I'm just adding, using this open dialog and saying that I need to open, so this one line creates a dialog, gets that select car page and moves it inside, and it opens like this. So this is actually another page, right? So when I click this symbol, it takes that car and sends it back to that main page, which is behind the scenes. So here you can just say, okay, I'm on the dialog, I'm calling close dialog by passing that selected car, and here I can get it on car chosen callback. You can define what callback to execute. So you can create a flow with multiple pages, and you can stay on the same page. So it's kind of SPA. It is one of the popular features. So anyone had requirements on client-side validation when working with JSF or when working with some other framework, client-side validation? Yeah, probably many of you, because it is quite, stupid to go to the server to see if a field is empty or not, right? So in JSF has that. I mean, JSF does its validations on the server side. There's no client-side validation. There has been some attempts, but they are like half-baked solutions. So in PrimeFaces, we have a very nice and matured client-side validation framework. It's quite easy to use because you don't need to do anything. You just need to say enable client-side validation. You can, of course, disable it at any level you want. So in JSF, we have these attributes like required, saying that that field cannot be empty, or validate double range, or for dates, we have converters and so on. So these tags, they do their job at the server side. But in PrimeFaces, they can also do it at the client side. So let me show you one example here. The basic one. So here you can see that this p input text is required. The other one has to be between 5 and 8. So there's nothing really specific to the client-side validation. The button just has validate client true. So it is actually can be enabled by a context parameter, but this attribute is useful if you want to disable it for that button. So, and this last button has it disabled. You can see that this is disabled. So I'm just adding some numbers and some things and calling. So as you can see, there is no post to the server. Everything is happening on the client side, and it's quite fast. And we have this, the components in JSF, they are rendered by Java renderers at server side. But we have this client-side renders where we render the component at the client side so that the look and feel is same. For example, if I decide to make the validation at server side, you can see pages posted, but the UI is same, so that the users do not see anything different between client-side validation and server-side validation. And we have taken this step one step further and integrated it with the bean validation. So instead of defining your constraints at the XHTML at the page level, we can just define these constraints with the data as a metadata, right? So that name should be minimum of 2 and 5, and that pass state should be before, now, and you can have regular expressions and so on as well. So in that case, the page is simpler, right? Because you don't need to have any JSF related tag. So what we do is that we get that data, parse the annotations, and send them to the client side with HTML5 data attributes. So in that case here, so this is a form. As you can see, there is nothing related to validation here. No required, no validate, because everything is here with the properties. So, and for example, name should be minimum 205 characters, right? So if I type something, client-side validation is triggered and saying that that name doesn't have enough characters. So it is quite easy to do that. And assume that your requirement has changed. Now they're saying, okay, we are accepting 1 character as well. We just need to change the annotation value to 1, and then the whole UI, you don't need to go to the pages and change your validations. So, and it is quite easy to write your own validations, client-side validations. For example, assuming that you have an email annotation. So you have a custom annotation called email, and whenever you put this on a field, JSF can do validation for your custom annotation. So for example, you need to write an email validator here. Of course, client-side validation is a helper, right? For security, validation should always be executed at server side as well, but this is the part where it handles it, and you also need to add your JavaScript validator to PrimeFace validator client-side API. So you can easily extend client-side APIs and implement your own. Okay, so themes. PrimeFaces has a theme engine. There are 2 types of themes. One is community themes, which are based on theme roller. They are free, and there are also premium themes, which are designed by a professional designer. So community themes, I think there are around 40 of them. They are mostly theme roller based, but we also created some. For example, if you are migrating from Rich Faces, there's a Rich Faces theme, so that your UI will look the same, but the backend will be PrimeFaces. And there's a Twitter Bootstrap theme. If you like that bluish default theme of Bootstrap and want to make sure that your page application looks like any other application on the web these days, you can use Twitter Bootstrap and so on. There's also Metro UI. So this is the Bootstrap theme. So this is a simple jar file. You add it to your application, and your application looks like Bootstrap. Sometimes people can confuse that PrimeFace is based on Bootstrap, but we are not based on Bootstrap. We are just using as a it as a theme. There's also Metro UI as well available. So installing a theme is quite easy. You just need to download the jar from the PrimeFaces repository and edit your class path, configure that XML saying that, okay, PrimeFace theme should be Aristo, and so on. So let me show one of the free themes. So this is a page with a lot of components, right? Data tables, everything. And we can just say, for example, Bootstrap, and the components start looking like Bootstrap. And for example, we have also a lot of free themes. For example, you can have dark themes, but you can see that as of 2015, they are kind of looking a bit outdated, right? Because they are based on theme roller, which is itself kind of requires some work to create more modern themes. So if you don't like the available themes, you can create your own using the designer. We have decided to depend on theme roller from jQuery. So you just need to open the designer and, for example, say, okay, I need my header background to be blue, kind of bluish color, or maybe red. You can choose borders, text colors, icons, and the content should be, I'm not sure why this doesn't work. And buttons and everything. So assume that you spend more time and created a better looking theme, you just need to download this theme and it will give you a jar file. And that jar file is a theme roller zip file. But so it takes a process to convert that to a jar, PrimeFaces theme. Luckily, our community members created a tool called theme roller to PrimeFaces theme. You just log on to this website and upload that zip file. It will give you a jar file. So it's quite easy. You just need to design your theme with the palette and upload to that website, and you get your nice theme and start using. There's also the premium ones, which are these usually take like 1 month to create. But the nice thing is that this is not just theme. We also provide layouts, so that for nice looking menus, footers, headers, logging pages, error pages, everything needed to, you know, those popular Bootstrap layouts, templates that you see. We also do something like that, especially for PrimeFaces. So there's a theme for that components, and also the layout for the menus and everything. So there are 7 of them right now. One is Sentinel. These are also responsive, so they look great on you know, tablets and you know, phones. There's a Spark. For example, at Spark, the menu is on the top. So we are trying to create a market where there's a different choice for different requirements. So Ronin is, for example, its colors are red and black. Rio, if you like material design from Google, which I like, it's quite simple and flat. You can get Rio, Modena, which is the best seller, and Adamantium. These 3 are material design based. The latest one is Volt. It's more like enterprise-ish. And the next one is Titan. You know, lately, US government has posted design guidelines for public-facing websites, so that every US government agency should follow these rules, and so that they look same, right? Instead of, if you log into a government agency page, it looks different, and another one looks different. So if you follow these guidelines, then the whole government's utilities pages will look the same. So since PrimeFaces is quite popular in the United States agencies, government, we are creating a theme and layout based on those guidelines. So thanks to Google as well, because they created a nice specification for material design, how much padding you need to have, how much borders. So we created themes based on that. Anyone heard of resource library contracts feature of JSF? Resource library contracts. Yeah, that's why I guess. Because it's like a hidden feature. Anyone use, I think, Joomla or Drupal from PHP world? It's the same thing. So you create your themes and layouts and use them in the same application so that you can change it. So you create one page and run it for under Spark, Sentinel, and all these themes by just changing one configuration. It is called, this is not a PrimeFace feature. It's a nice feature of JSF that no one used because no one has templates. But since we do now, we can create templates. So this is a PF contracts application. As you can see, I have put all my Sentinel, Spark, all these resources under contracts folder. That's a special name, contracts. So we have every resources. I mean, these layouts are CSS, you know, everything. So let me first give you a short demo of one of them. For example, Modena. So this is Modena, and everything is here is JSF. And for example, this is the chart component that you're seeing, and this is the data table. So for example, we have different color variations as well. And for example, if you check out the theme, you know, all material design features are here. So, and what you also get is that this pre-designed dashboards, empty pages, and for example, you also get a logging page, for example, for your application. Start with that. And instead of, you know, working with the designer, and of course, designers can change these as well. And you also get an error page, for example. So everything is ready for the application. And you get the main menu and the side menu as well. And of course, it is responsive, right? So you like Modena and you like, let's say, Sentinel, and you are creating a product saying that we want different faces for our product, so that for one client we are going to sell it as Modena, and with one client we want to use Sentinel with different logo, of course. And so to do that, JSF resource library contracts are quite cool. So you place the resources of each contract template in its own folder and go to web.xml and say, use, of course, create a contract view, for example, like this. Bean. It's a session scope bean, yeah. And its default one is Sentinel. So I will use some menus to change them to Spark and so on. So we are changing the theme here. So it's the theme for components, not the layout. And for layout, we need to go to the template, actually. So here is the application file. So sample.xhtml, where you created your file, right? In regular JSF, you use template so that you can use placeholders and use instead of repeating the headers and footers, the static stuff, you put them on a template. But the next level is using contracts, so that if this contracts setting saying that, okay, this page should use, what was the contract? Sentinel, right? Should use Sentinel layouts template. So that one is here. That is this template. So if you change that bean to, let's say, Spark, it will go and use this layout, this template set. So here, for example, let's say, so this is my sample page. This is it, where I have some inputs, data tables, charts, and so on. So it's a long page. So this is my page running on Sentinel, right? So here I'm saying, in templates, I have some menu items here. When I click this menu item, I change the contract views contract property to Spark, so that application runs on Spark right now. So the same page running on Spark. So you can have different, of course, menus and things like that. You can go to run-in. Rio as well. And let's say Modena, the one I showed you before. And the same thing, functionality is the same. You don't need to repeat it for. And this is Adamantium, where you can have some customization, like I want the menu to be darker and put it on the left side, and so on. And last one is we can use Vault. So this is the Vault template. And of course, this one also has some options like and so on. So, but this sample, you can see the URL, it's sample.xhtml, but it's running on different templates. So it is quite easy to create multi-templated applications. And as I mentioned, they are responsive, right? So for example, if you check this data table, it's tabular, right? But if I just, or this data grid, but if I just do some, minimize my screen, the forms, they align themselves, and the dialog as well. For example, dialogs are also responsive. And the data table displays itself in stacked format, and the data grid changes its grid format as well. And the trees, pick list, everything. For example, this is the carousel widget, where you can display things with a sliding effect, but in a bigger screen. So all of these templates are responsive, so that you can, as I mentioned, play with these online as well. So the same functionality. So the same page, same backing bin, everything is same, but the window outside is different. The PrimeFace Mobile is another module. It is for developers who like to keep their mobile sites separate, like mobile.myweb myapplication.com instead of using these responsive layouts to do it with one page. Sorry. So the PrimeFace mobile is an XHTML, so we use the same bean for the backend, but for the UI, we need to create a separate XHTML. And there's a couple of tags like PM page and PM content and so on, where you can use these components. So there's a nice feature in JSF called renderkit. So the renderkit can, a mobile renderer can render a button based on the mobile optimized button, but in a desktop environment, it could be a regular button. So for example, it's also jQuery mobile based. So we have created a render kit based on jQuery mobile. So here is mobile. For example, let's check the Twitter application. If we check the code, we have the content, header, and form, buttons, and data lists. But since they are created by a different renderer, we get a different UI for that. And you can have multiple pages as well. These are not native. These are mobile web applications. You can choose, for example, whether you can go to different pages and then come back. And nice thing is that we also enabled touch events. So for example, you have this data table and data grid. So you want to tap or you just swipe left or swipe right. You want to delete a record. So for example, here, I guess this is the one, events. So in the code, we are saying that on swipe left, delete the record. So when you swipe left, PrimeFaces will invoke this method, swipe car, and it will give you the car instance that you have just swiped. So, for example, I will just try to do that with mouse, but it looks much better on a mobile phone. So it's like a utility touch kit for PrimeFaces. Okay. Anyone required push? Anyone had push requirements? Like, yeah, a lot of people. So lately we are having, WebSocket APIs and on standard Java APIs as well. Anyone heard of Atmosphere? Yeah, it's a project from Async.io, which is our friend Jean-François Arcand's project. And we actually called them and get some consulting, and we ended up contracting them to implement PrimeFaces push module so that you can use JSF components and push data from server to the client, anyone connected anytime in real-time format. So we are not the developers of this, but they are developing it for us. So it supports WebSockets and fallback transfers like HTTP streaming and long polling as well. It's highly scalable. It is widely used in newspapers and gaming websites all around the world. And it's quite portable so that you don't need to worry about changing the server so that you can have, of course, this was this problem was a bit more before Java EE 8. So the API is quite simple and fun to use. Here we have, for example, counter. This is the simplest one. So we have this JSF button called pCommand button, and at the action, I'm calling this method called global views increment method. So I'm just saying get the event bus. So event bus is used to publish data and publish this value to the counter channel. So you can publish lists, any Java object, and we serialize that to JSON. And here we have this socket component. Socket is saying that, okay, connect to the counter channel. So this one is, these two windows are connected, right? So if I click from one page, and I will get it instantly on all anyone connected. So another maybe more interesting use case would be that you need to send message to all connected users instantly. The code for that is quite simple as well. There's an API called Faces message in JSF where you can display messages on pages. You can also publish that. So we are saying publish to notify channel this Faces message. As I mentioned, you can publish anything. And that one as well. So let's say, hello, Devoxx. And everyone get that Faces message on their screen. And final demo would be about, for example, chart. So this one is listening the browser type, and for example, it is Chrome. And now if I connect from Firefox, and if I connect from Safari maybe a couple of times, you can see that we are pushing data instantly. And one weird demo as well, you can push your photo. Hopefully it will work. I could not access webcam. Maybe there's a security thing. Because it was working. Share. Yeah, it's open now. But this one doesn't. Okay, maybe we can try between these two. Wow. No, not now. Yes, so I take my picture and I will send that data to anyone using that API. Okay, this one is quite shy. It doesn't show itself, but getting all the pictures. And so on. So PrimeFace push is, it's also quite mature. It's been 2 years since we have released this, and there are many banks and insurance companies are also using push to do real-time applications. Okay, last 9 minutes. Okay, so you like this stuff, but you don't like JSF. What you are going to do? Check out PrimeUI. So PrimeUI is a set of jQuery UI plugins. What we have done is that we have written a lot of jQuery stuff instead of using wrappers. We encapsulated them and extracted them, and presented them as PrimeUI. So word prime is quite catchy, right? So you can just put it in front of a word, and it becomes a catchy project name. PrimeUI, PrimeFaces, PrimePush, everything. So you can use it with, for example, REST. So if you like for example, Spring MVC, where you define the widgets manually with jQuery and things, or using a REST base, you're calling a Ajax API from an HTML page, you're using PHP and another something, or upcoming Java MVC framework in Java Enterprise 8, you can use PrimeUI. So the model is quite different. We have regular HTML elements. By the way, you can also use regular HTML elements in JSF 2.2 in case you missed. It's called, instead of these tags, you can use buttons and inputs, regular HTML elements as well as JSF components. So we are running PUI spinner, and we are getting the spinner widget. And for tab, we have this UL and divs and things like that. Of course, the programming model is different. You have to do much more, but you gain things as well. For example, this is PrimeUI, same showcase. We are kind of lazy to create a new one. Let's check out data table. So we have the remote version, the local version, and so on. The lazy version, responsive version. So if you check out the source, you have a JavaScript array, you can put it in a data table. So for example, this one is the remote one. We are defining the columns and calling the data source, which is this one is calling a RESTful web service, and getting the data as JSON and giving it to the data table. And you can have row selections, everything. And pagination is quite easy as well. You can go to the server. If you set, remember that scrollable attribute in data table, we have scrollable here. And of course, then it makes the data table scrollable. So there are close to 50 widgets. The most common ones, there is no signature widget, but there is tabs, accordions, data table, tree table, and menus, which is quite even some multimedia stuff as well. So the PrimeUI could be interesting for you if you like the PrimeFaces widgets, but want to use something else other than JSF. And the new version is coming out soon, where we have added a lot of new features for data table widget. So let's wrap up. There are a couple of books. I haven't written them. It's community-based, so there are other authors have written these nice books. Most popular one is PrimeFace Cookbook, where you can have different how-to related information. It's based on recipes. There are some tutorials as well, and starter, beginner's guides, advanced PrimeFaces kind of things. So in case you have a problem, of course, PrimeFace community is here to help. We have more than 60,000 members here and 130 posts on a forum. So there's a big knowledge base. One nice thing is that if you downloaded NetBeans, PrimeFaces is built in, so there are nice tools for PrimeFace as well. If you choose Java Server Faces in NetBeans Wizard, the PrimeFaces will pop up and you can create your UI with PrimeFaces. And there's a nice NetBeans plugin from Oracle where you can do reverse engineering and direct engineering as well. For example, from tables, you can generate UI with all the EJBs and the backing beans, CDI beans, and also the XHTML, where there's a velocity template so that you can customize the generated part. And this one is choosing the reverse engineering where NetBeans reads the tables, creates the UI pages for you. And nice thing about this is that this is customizable, so you can customize what will be generated. So another thing is that on NetBeans, if you choose right-click and say generate form, generate data table, it will ask for a JPA entity with entity annotation. It will read the properties and generate, for example, for data table, it will generate columns. For forms, it will generate inputs in all PrimeFaces space. So it's quite easy to generate boilerplate forms. So the business model of PrimeFaces is Pro. Everything is free in PrimeFaces, components, features, but if you need support, you might consider upgrading to PrimeFaces Pro. This is where the enterprises are choosing Pro to feel safe, and we answer their questions in a couple of hours when they post. Instead of posting to the community forum, there's a private Jira as well. So, roadmap, right now we are on 5.3, and next version is 5.4. For January, make it March, probably. So there's this new spreadsheet component coming. We are working on that so that you can have Excel-like features on the web. We will merge PrimeFaces extensions components. It's a community-based project, but it has its own book. So there are nice components like, for example, timeline, where you can list Zoom things and other things. So this will be available in PrimeFaces as well. And there are also other components. So we are merging these, not all of them, so the good ones to the PrimeFaces. Improve accessibility is one thing. More premium themes and layouts are coming, like Titan, and we need to find cool names for them. So we will keep pushing PrimeUI for the next release and new widgets for jQuery UI users. And now we have turned our attention to the newer specifications like web components, Angular to React, where we feel like it's quite similar to the JSF's model because JSF components are server-side, web components are client-side, the same tags, right? So we are planning to create new open source projects around and port PrimeFaces widgets to these. Not all of them, probably, but maybe web components and Angular are quite nice candidates right now. We have already started working on it. Okay, so Twitter handle is @PrimeFaces. It's one of the most followed JVM web frameworks at Twitter. There's a Facebook group where we give away themes, layouts, and other commercial offerings, and there's a that is the block for if you want to keep track. So thank you. 1 minute left, so I'm glad that I'm on time. So if you have any questions for 1 minute, you can find me after the event as well. Any questions? Yeah.
We have time. I remember working with PrimeFaces 4 last time, and generally when I was using Ajax, the server sent HTML response.
Yeah.
And all the components were like switched with the new HTML.
Yeah.
And there was a problem when the components held some state on client side was gone. It was completely replaced. Are there any plans, or is there at least an option to plug different behavior than just switching back?
No, but there are plans for JSF 2.3 to use JSON updates, so that instead of HTML updates, there are some plans. But it's in PrimeFaces component specific. Some components use JSON, some use HTML. So it depends on the state. So right now there's no solution.
If there was something like DOM merging, like there is in React.js.
Yeah, could be, yeah. But right now it's more like brute force, like updates everything. Okay, thank you very much.